Hi, this is Jonathan Rosenhead, Jerusalem psychotherapist. For this week's Torah and Psychology post, we're going to discuss the emotion of happiness. Happiness being something that everybody searches for, tries to find and to experience in their life, and it's a vital emotion. One that has received so much attention and investment in effort financially. There's an industry which is devoted to trying to find happiness in psychology. There's a whole branch and a direction in the psychological field of happiness and happiness studies that it's such a vital and integral part of life. But at the same time, it's somewhat of an ambiguous emotion, elusive even, it requires further explanation and try to understand what is this emotion of happiness. And I think in this week's Parsha, we get an interesting insight into happiness. Because when the Torah talks about Sukkot, that this is a chag which is seen as Zaman Simchatenu. Now this is the time when we are happy. And the Pasuk says that when describing how we will experience and how we will feel at Sukkot, it says Vayitem ach sameach, that we will have, in a sense, only happiness, pure, undiluted happiness, which, if we try to understand, is a little bit puzzling. Because what is this ach sameach, this experience of pure, it's a pure happiness, which is not compromised or mixed in any way, that is somewhat puzzling. It seems to be almost impossible. How can we have only happiness? This thing, this emotion that everyone's looking for, spends all their lives saying they just want to be happy. They want to be happy. But is that really possible? Is it really possible, as the Torah says, to be just happy with nothing else? As the Sforno says, happiness which is not mixed up with any sadness. That in life, the reality is that most of the time there is sadness and there's happiness, but we can never have this split of being in a situation where we can say I'm only happy with no sadness. So what is this promise? As Rashi says, it's not a tzivui, it's not a commandment, you should be happy, in the sense that we are being told, do what you can to be happy. Because as we know, you can't command someone to feel happiness. Happiness is emotion that is expressed, that is generated. We can't have a tzivui, a commandment to be happy, because that plays against the reality and the complexity of one's emotions. But as Rashi says, it's not a tzivui, it's a haftacha, it's a promise. Vayitem ach sameach, Hashem is promising you will be happy. So how can we have this promise? This promise that there will be an emotional experience of happiness that the Sforno says will not be affected and will not be compromised by the normal situation where there's a conflict perhaps of wanting to be happy but also feeling sad. This dichotomous experience that we have to grapple with in our life of wanting to be happy, of searching for happiness, but perhaps being brought down by sadness and by struggles that we experience in our life. So I think what we need to do is to acknowledge, as we're saying, this is the Torah and Psychology post, a Torah and Psychology perspective, is that the Torah isn't trying to ignore the reality of a human existence, of saying, forget happiness, forget sadness, forget depression, you won't experience any of that, you'll just be happy. The Torah is not trying to take on this Pollyanna view of saying that everything is great and being positive to the extent of an extreme perspective. When the Sforno says that we can perhaps perhaps experience sadness without the influence or without the detrimental impact and effect of sadness, it's actually saying that we will get to a state, and if a person is able to get to a state where they can acknowledge the reality of life, that there is different conflictual and conflicting emotions that a person can experience, that even if there is sadness, there can also be happiness. Then if they reach that reality and that radical acceptance, that they aren't pulled to the side or brought down by the fact that they have certain aspects in their life that are sad, certain aspects that they feel is affecting them and making them feel vulnerable, if they're able to reach a radical state of total acceptance of the dialectical experience that we have in life, that there is sadness and there is happiness, then that will be expressed in pure happiness. Why is that? Well, Shlomo Wolbe explains when he's discussing in the Sefer Alei Shor of happiness, he acknowledges the fact that there's always going to be conflicts. There's going to be this sort of clash between different aspects in our life. And he says, just as in life there is a man and a woman, there is Shamayim va'aretz, there's Guf v'nefesh. We have these conflicting elements, but if you put them together, it brings about something which is happy, beautiful, and productive. A man and a woman, they can bring children. The Shamayim va'aretz is something which we see rain and water coming and growth to the land. Guf v'nefesh is the two parts, and it brings about this complete, wholesome experience of a human being. And when you put these contrasting elements together, Shlomo Wolbe says that by finding a way to unite the two elements, to find a way of creating a cohesive unit, then from that there will always create happiness. That will be the experience. The experience of simcha is when you're able to unite and combine and find, in a sense, peace between different aspects, even contradicting aspects in life, and through that will bring simcha. That is Rav Shlomo Wolbe's general thesis of how to understand simcha. So if we see this time of Sukkot, this Chag, it's giving us a moment within the year to understand the complexity of our life, to understand the fact that we have conflicting emotions and that we're being pulled sometimes in different directions, that we feel sadness but we want to feel satisfaction and also a sense of confidence and joy in our life. When we're able to acknowledge the dialectical experience, the reality of our life, and we find a way of uniting them and finding a synthesis of these different aspects in our life, as Shlomo Wolbe says, once you bring them together and you find peace between these two aspects and you create this actual reality of acceptance, then from that can only come this state of simcha. Vayitem ach sameach. Have a great Shabbos and keep well.